What's up, everybody? It's me, Stevie, Super Smunchy Brew, Super Smoke Werewolf, and today I'm going to be talking about why I skipped the Nintendo Switch 2 for now. So let's get into this. So the first thing I want to talk about is, I'm waiting for a special variant gaming console, So when it comes down to it, Nintendo and other companies like Sony have a history of releasing gaming consoles, of having like unique, cool colors, designs, designs based on specific types of franchises or characters, which is really wonderful and cool, And in modern times, it happens still. It's rare, it's really rare. Now, Nintendo-wise, they've done it a lot with the Nintendo Switch original, Nintendo Switch 1 and stuff. And I feel like in the Nintendo Switch 2, they're going to do that, And this also bleeds into another thing, which I'll get back to the variants real quick, but a OLED version. Unfortunately, the Nintendo Switch 2 does not have a OLED screen, and that's cheap and lazy in my opinion. So I'm like, you know what? I want a OLED screen Nintendo Switch 2 because if I'm going to buy a game console with hard work and money, I'm going to want the best and high quality, you know what I mean? So, and I want something that looks really cool and amazing, you know what I mean? So, like for example, over here we've seen the Nintendo Switch 1 OLED, and that was like the Splatoon 3 edition. That was really cool. Splashes of neon and, like on the dock itself, and then you have like neon green, neon violet, and it's really cool and wonderful and wonderful. And then you have like the Mobile Suit Gundam Nintendo GameCube, which is really wonderful and cool. That one is like, oh man, the Char edition, wow, really cool. And then you have, of course, the Nintendo 64 Pikachu edition, Pokemon Stadium, really amazing and cool. And then I look at the Nintendo Switch, and this is not just a Nintendo thing, other consoles do this too, where they have either black or white, you know what I mean? Basic colors basically, or sometimes gray, which the only gaming console that could pull off gray is the Sony PlayStation 1 successfully. Or if you're limited to, launches and stuff, the PS2, I guess, it fits also, the Slim. But when it comes down to it, in modern times, I think, what they should do, have like a base console for everyone who, doesn't care about that stuff. But for people like me, give an option, you know what I mean? Hey, I think this is a great idea, you know what I mean? I will get it, I'll have fun and enjoy it. Hopefully, like I said, they make a OLED version, so it's like more advanced than the original and stuff like that. So that's what I personally am in for, something cool like that. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is, when it comes down to it, I want more unique games. You know what I mean? Like, I look at the Nintendo Switch 2 lineup so far, and it's not really getting to me as it is right now, these days. I'm like, okay, some upcoming games are remakes and remasters that are released on the PS4 and 5 that I have, or the original Switch that I have, like Mario Party Jamboree. You know what I mean? That's one of them. I have that game. I got it on launch. So, and I believe that came out last year. So, yeah. And I'm like, don't get me wrong, there are upcoming games for the Nintendo Switch too. Like, for example, the new Splatoon game. Hopefully, yeah, I feel like they're going to have a variant console of that when that game comes out. So, we have the new Splatoon game. People are talking about a new 3D Super Mario game, which is going to be amazing and cool. Let's hope for the best. And of course, the new, The Legend of Zelda, Age of Calamity sequel, I believe. Yeah. And, yeah, there's other games as well, and I'm excited for that. So let's see what happens, variant-wise. Now, I think when it comes down to it, it's going to be really interesting and cool. But, like I say, more unique games and stuff like that would be cool to see. Maybe they could make like a deal with other companies, because I think in the past, in the Wii U, that's another funny thing. I was thinking about that the other day. I was like, now this might be controversial to say, but the Nintendo Wii U had more unique stuff. It just did, like think about it. I was looking back on some, like I listened to like these game stuff, and then people talking about stuff that I know, game form, or when it's with people, other gamers, and they made a good point. They're like, wasn't there like a Star Fox game on the Nintendo Wii U And then I was like, I think I seen a trailer like that. And then like the Switch only had a quote unquote DLC of Star Fox for some game everyone forgot. I don't even remember it. You know what I mean? And I'm thinking about that, and I'm like, what happened to Star Fox, man? Like, everyone loves Star Fox. It's considered a classic, just like F-Zero. Yet, just like F-Zero, Star Fox is gone, and it's like, damn, that's unfortunate. Like, you know what I mean? Like, a lot of people hold that high next to games like Earthbound, for example, and it's like, what happened? You know what I mean? So bringing back some franchises would be wonderful too, and maybe they could have like, you know, if they do have like a Nintendo Switch 2 Pro and something that could handle like top graphics, maybe it could play PS4 base games, and that's how you could get like, let's see, some modern games on PS4 would be The King of Fighters 15, Tekken 8, you know, those two, and put the PS4 version onto the Switch 2 Pro maybe in the future, or the OLED, if it's powerful enough. And then you could have like unique suits, you know what I mean? Like, say Jin is cosplaying as Mario, and then Kazuya as like Link, and then like, I think, yeah, I would say, you know, you already know, Lily, Princess Peach, and Asuka Kazama, Daisy. You know, something like that, something unique and cool, work with other companies. Because Nintendo used to do that stuff a lot, and that was really wonderful and cool back then. You know, when Mario wasn't like that, what was it, Dance Dance Revolution stuff and all that. So, yeah, that would be cool. The next thing I was thinking about, you know, when it comes to the Nintendo Switch 2 is, man, I feel like, oh, of course, Splatoon, what was it? Splatoon Raiders. Yeah. That's a game that I'm waiting for. So the Nintendo Switch 2 does have games that I'm excited for, but they're not out yet. You know, now I personally, in my opinion, I think what's out in the Nintendo Switch currently, it's either I have those games or they bore me, you know, and I'm talking about the new games. Nintendo, I don't know, that's just how I see it, you know what I mean? I don't have no interest in Donkey Kong or that Mario Kart game. You know, that's just how I feel, you know. If I want to play classic Donkey Kong, I got the Super Nintendo and I got the trilogy of the classic Donkey Kong Country. You know what I mean? So, yeah. And now, when it comes down to it, I also, and other games, by the way. So, I feel like when it comes down to it, you know, I'm happy I skipped the Switch 2 at launch because, oh man, let me tell you, yo, Sony, the PS5, it really helped me this time around, you know. Because I saw how that console was the first few years. I had it since launch, and then I was like, I look at the Switch 2 lineup for the next, you know, from its launch to all summer, and I'm like, yeah, I'm good. Yep. And it's unfortunate because, you know, like, for example, these gaming companies, they get so comfortable, and then they let their guard down, and then they just get punched around and beat up, you know what I mean? Like Sony, we saw, you know, on the PS3 they made a comeback, you know what I mean? Don't get me wrong, but they still lost to a Wii, you know. But the PS3 is still wonderful. I love it more than the Wii, you know what I mean? Best console of that generation, the 7th gen in my opinion. And when it comes down to it, let's see, the PS5, Switch, you know, all that stuff. The Switch, they were dominating a lot, you know, they were coming out with like, wow, man, the games they were coming out with the Nintendo Switch original on launch, I was like, yo, this is wonderful, this is cool, this is entertainment. I love this console, you know what I mean? Took it everywhere, played it everywhere, you know, it was fun, you know what I mean? And then I'm like, even in current times, you know what I mean? Like, there's still games coming out on the Nintendo Switch original that I'm like, yo, this console is still alive, this console is still kicking and having fun, similar to the PS4. And I'm like, yo, I'm having fun, you know? So it's not, I don't feel the need to buy, you know? And that's another thing, have like exclusives of what getting it for, you know? And another thing is, you know, when it comes down to it, I feel like Nintendo got, they got soft, you know? They took a break. Like Sony, you know, they were like, okay, we're so high up in the sky, we're chilling, we're winning. Let's chill it down, you know. They got too comfortable, and that's an issue, you know. No matter what, when you get too comfortable in life, that's when you start going down, you know what I mean? And I feel like when it comes down to Nintendo and Sony, I feel like they got too comfortable and relied a lot on the remakes and remasters, and that's kind of unfortunate to see because these companies have shown in their history to be like, yo, when they release a game that, for sure, like when they're on their top game, or let's be honest, man, when these companies are struggling, they're in the best. A struggling company is on their best because we see like the creativity getting pushed. Look at the Nintendo Wii U. The Nintendo Wii U is the worst selling Nintendo gaming home console, not including the Virtual Boy, and it's like, dude, what happened? But look at the games on there. You have the Tekken game, what was it, Tekken Tag Tournament 2 with Nintendo exclusive DLC being created. And then they did like that, what was it? They had different other things as well. Like Splatoon was created on the Wii U. And other stuff as well. Mario Kart 8, started there, then 8 Deluxe on the Switch. And then boom, it just blew up into its own little, universe or whatever. So, except for when gaming, company in general, we see creativity. You know what I mean? So I feel like when it comes down to it, Nintendo, they've been having their time of, most of that, because the new Pokemon game came out and I'm hearing a lot of, about that, you know what I mean? So, yeah, maybe they have their day, the Pokemon company, but for now, I feel like Nintendo is kind of they're not going at it as much like they did in the past, you know what I mean? Like comparing the Switch 1 to the Switch 2, I feel like they were more creative in pushing out a lot of more games and titles and had more hype and excitement to look forward to compared to the same time of back then, you know what I mean? So yeah. And that's unfortunate. I feel like, Nintendo will, come back around and be like, yo, boom, here's a brand new Kirby game that's just like a 3D excitement and adventure, you know what I mean? Or like, here's a new 3D Super Mario game that just blows everything away. You know what I mean? Like, you know what I mean? I feel like, some people made a good point of saying, oh, the reason they're having like Super Mario Galaxy 1 and 2 coming back in like a remake faction in a remake way is because they what was it? The next 3D Super Mario game is going to be Super Mario Galaxy 3. Now, I feel like that could be a possibility. We have gotten, like the sequel to The Legend of Zelda, a Breath of the Wild, and then we had like a sequel to other games as well, and I feel like, for example, Xenoblade 2 was on Switch, and then Xenoblade 3 was on Switch as well, so Nintendo has a history of making sequels and then another game on top of it to make another one, you know what I mean? So I feel like, yeah, that could be a possibility. A new Super Mario Galaxy 3. That would be interesting and cool to see. Now, but I would say this. If they do bring a whole new idea, a whole new 3D Super Mario game, I think it's going to be amazing, New idea. Because, when you make a sequel to a game and stuff, you have an idea, okay, it's going to be similar to Play This While. Well, remember Super Mario Odyssey, seeing that for the first time? Like, people were like, how is it going to work? You throw Cappy, Howard, and boom, and they walked around it and made it into a wonderful, fun gameplay experience. And yeah, I think Super Mario Odyssey still lives up till this day. So hopefully they, continue with the, excitement and unique ideas for the new 3D Super Mario game. So I'm excited for that as well. See what they're going to do next. So yeah. So the last thing I want to talk about before ending the video is this. When it comes down to gaming, and this is a modern gaming thing in general, when I think about it, I see it like this, like when it comes down to it, this generation, modern generation, we're under what now? 9th gen, yes. And I feel like it's like this, I got the PS5, I see their competitor, which is the Switch 2, right? And I'm like, okay, yeah, I'm seeing a puzzle. I'm seeing a similar pattern where it's like they remaking stuff from back then, the generation back then. And I never understood that, because it's like you have a game console that could play last gen games from the previous console. Why are you remaking those games? It's no logic. That's a waste of money, Instead, what you should be doing is, if you're going to remake games from 2-3 generations ago. You know what I mean? That's stuck in that console. For example, Sony, give us a remake of Tokyo Jungle with online mode and all that stuff. Nintendo, give us a remake of, like, say, Pokemon Coliseum from the GameCube. I think that was the name. You know, or Gales of Darkness. That's another one. You know what I mean? Like, these high priced video games or something like that in Nintendo's case, you know, or unique games in Sony's case, you know what I mean? Like, why not remake those games? Give the love and appreciation to retro games, which they have been doing. Let me say, you know, Nintendo has been doing it. We had the Galaxy 1 and 2, you know, so they've been doing it. But do more of that stuff, you know what I mean? Because a lot of these games and these amazing, wonderful games, they get stuck in these, you know, retro game consoles and stuff like that, and then they get high priced and stuff like that. And before someone says emulation, of course I know emulation. Like, trust me, man. How you think I played a lot of Neo Geo back in the day? But besides that, let me just say this. You know, when it comes down to it, I feel like the Nintendo Switch 2, you know, as long as Nintendo tries to come back to being creative, they're going to succeed this generation, you know? And I feel like, as it is now, you know, seeing some of the games, I'm like, I'll wait a little bit more. You know, one thing I do know is, when that new The Legend of Zelda game comes out, I'm getting it. That's when I'm getting it. I hope they make a variant. I hope so, because if they don't, man, Nintendo would be just like, what? I want a The Legend of Zelda Switch 2 variant or Super Mario 1. We'll see what happens. So I just wanted to ramble about and say stuff. So yeah, let me know what you all think in the comments below. I hope you enjoyed the video. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Until next time, bye.